Now, why exactly is this called Birthday Bourbon? Well, let's find out. What is going on, everybody? Nathan here with the Everyday Drinker, bringing us a brand new video, and I cannot wait to get into today's video, so why don't we just start it off right freaking now. Today's distillery review, we are going over Old Forester. Now, Old Forester is located in Louisville, Kentucky, and Old Forester is owned by Brown-Forman. Now, Brown-Forman also owns Woodford Reserve and Jack Daniels, but that does not mean that they are the exact same juice. No, not the case whatsoever. Old Forester has done the same thing for so long. Old Forester's mash bill is contained of 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley, and they've had the same mash bill for a very long time. Old Forester has some really cool things that they do with their warehouses. Not all of them, but they have 7 warehouses where 5 of them are heat cycled, which in turn means that they are trying to maintain a balance from the top to the bottom, or the top to the bottom of the warehouse, so that all the barrels inside of that warehouse maintain and have somewhat of the same exact flavor profile. But there are 2 warehouses out of the 7 that don't do this, and which allow the elements of the world, of the beautiful Louisville, Kentucky, to have their influence on those barrels to see what bottom has to offer and what the top has to offer. And these 2 are G and H. And these are 2 of my favorite warehouses from Old Forester. Now, enough about the distillery itself. Let's get into what we all know and love and talk about the bourbons that they have to offer. All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty of these whiskeys over at Old Forester. They have 3 baseline whiskeys. They have 2 bourbons and 1 rye. A baseline 86er that is absolutely delicious. That is a really good summer sipper on ice, maybe with a little bit of iced tea, maybe in your lemonade. You really don't care about this one, but this is a really nice, just cheap, easy-going 86 proof bottle of bourbon. But the other 2 that I really do enjoy are the 100 proof bourbon, and then I'll put a little picture of the 100 proof rye on the bar for you, because I don't have that bottle right now because I just emptied it out a couple of weeks ago. But these 2 right here are absolutely delicious. But the one difference is they're a bourbon and a rye. So Old Forester's rye mash bill is a little bit different than a lot of other distilleries, where they have a lower corn percentage than malted barley. And that mash bill consists and derives of 65% rye, 20% malted barley, which is really high, and 15% corn, which is really low. And that's why they have a much different flavor profile, rye whiskey, than a lot of other places. But I do, as I always say on this channel, love the Old Forester 100 proof bourbon so much. It's a $26, $27, same thing as the rye, and they are absolutely wonderful. Now, let's get into the next set of bottles from Old Forester. All right, so Old Forester has what they call the Whiskey Row, and this is a lineup that consists of 5 different bourbons, and one of them is an actual allocated limited to release bottle. But let's start off with the one that I don't have, which is the Old Forester 1870, and this is the original batch, and this one is the red label. I'll put it right here on the screen for you guys to see, but this is just the original batch, what they came out with back in 1870, using a lot of the same methods and things along those lines that they wanted to just keep in the exact same way with this red label, the original batch. But moving in over here with the ones that I do have, the green label is the 1897. Now, this is the bottled and bond. So this is at least 4 years old. It's bottled at 100 proof, and it's a really nice sipping whiskey that I really do enjoy. Moving over, we've got the 1910. Now, this is an old, fine whiskey. The cool thing about this thing is that it finishes in a secondary barrel that is heavily charred. And what that does is it brings in a lot more of those oak prevalent flavors, and it is very deep in this whiskey. It's proofed at 93 proof. It's really cool because of the story that's behind it, is because back I believe in, I think 1910, I'm not quite sure when the year was when it happened, they had a little bit of a fire. And those barrels that were holding some of the whiskey in it got super, super charred. And they tasted it and they were like, wow, this is absolutely fantastic. This is an old, fine whiskey. And here we have what they still call an old, fine whiskey in 1910, proofed at 93 proof. And it's a really, really good bottle at the price, at the proof, at the flavor profile. Let's move into the next one over here, which is the 1920. This is the Prohibition style bottle. This is 115 proof. Now, back in Prohibition, Old Forester was one of the only distilleries that had a medicinal liquor license to still produce whiskey. Whiskey had to be put in the barrel at 100 proof. That's right. It was a super, super low entry proof. But what would happen is when it was aging in the barrel, you would sometimes get higher proofed whiskey in the outcome. And that was considered the angel's share. And with that, you got 115 proof whiskey out of the barrel and into the bottle. And that's how we got this Prohibition style whiskey from Old Forester. Now, over here on my left-hand side, the only full bottle of the Whiskey Row that I have on the bar is the 1924. This was a bottle that was released last year. This is a 10-year-old 100-proof whiskey. Now, this is a little bit different than the other Old Forester lineup bottles because it has a different mash bill than everything else. Why is that? Because they can do whatever the heck they want. Now, this mash bill consists of 79% corn, 11% rye, and 10% malted barley. So it's a little bit higher in the corn, brings in a little bit more sweetness, a little less depth, but the age of this has some older bourbons in it. We're not quite sure. Some people speculate we're seeing 15, 16-year-old barrels blended with 10-year-old barrels. But to hold that 10-year age statement, the youngest barrel in that blend has to be 10 years old. Now, I don't know if this bottle is still worth over $115, which it is. These three bottles right here are $50 to $60 bottles, and I absolutely love them. I don't know if I love them a lot more than the 1924, but the 1924, if it was an $85, $90 bottle, I'd say it's a pickup all day. Now, enough of the Whiskey Row. Let's get into the next set of bottles from Old Forester. Now, going back to what we were talking about earlier with Old Forester's heat-cycled and regulated warehouses, this also comes into effect where a lot of people love the Old Forester flavor profile and the differences of the warehouses and the floors of the warehouses. Now, that is solely due to the fact that they have fantastic single barrels. And they used to have a 90-proof single barrel, which I have right here, but they don't do this one anymore. Why? I'm not quite sure. This is one of my absolute favorite 90 proof bottles of bourbons that I own at this exact moment, and I've been savoring it for over 3 years now. Now, this one was a Warehouse I Floor 1, so this was a low floor, nice warehouse that was heat regulated, really, really good. But let's get into the other three that are mainstays and staples in the Old Forester single barrel lineup. So starting off with the lowest proof bottle that we can get from Old Forester single barrels is the 100 proofer. Now, this is not bottled in bond. It does not have an age statement on it whatsoever, but these are all going to be 100 proof whiskeys. Now, these are all going to come from different warehouses and different floors, and they do somewhat have subtlety differences in the flavor profiles. Now, I personally do enjoy these more than the blue labels, which are the barrel strength single barrels. Now, a lot of people might be having the exact opposite thought process that I do about these two bottles, but these are going to be coming in at barrel proof, and they're all going to be different. Now, I've seen some of these hitting 131, 132 proof, and as low as 122, 123 proof. They do vary, and they do vary in flavor and depth and flavor and all those fun qualities that our bourbon has to offer. And I do think, personally, I like the flavor profiles of these 100 proofers a little bit more than what these barrel strengths have to offer, because they do offer a little bit too much heat in the back end of a sip, whereas the 100 proofer is just a really good, easy sipping whiskey through and through. Now, enough of the bourbons, because we're talking about the Big Daddy next. That's right. We're going to be talking about this green label. This green label right here is the barrel strength single barrel rye. Now, this is my favorite, my absolute favorite single barrel that Old Forester has to offer. Now, these two, let me reiterate, these can be and will most likely always be store picks. The rye, however, I haven't seen a store pick per se, but these are all going to be single barrels as well. This one is from Warehouse K, Floor 1, coming out at 128.2 proof. I've seen from G and H and J and all the other warehouses, and these proofs do vary as well, from like 123 up to 100. I've seen them up to, I think, 133 proof. This flavor profile of these barrel strength ryes is just something that is magnificent. I enjoy this rye so much. It's completely different than a bunch of other ryes that I've had in the past, and I really just want you guys to know just how darn good this rye whiskey is, because if you see it on the shelves, it's an $85, $90 bottle. You're not going to be disappointed, and when a store gets these, they sell out of these really quick. Let's get in the next set of bottles. So over at Old Forester, they have a couple of really interesting releases that they do. And the two that I'm going to be talking about are the 117 series and the King Ranch. Now, the 117 series I don't have, so we'll talk about that first. That is an experimental series that Old Forester does, where they take some of their other flavor profile bourbons and implement something different. So the newest release that they have is the 1910 extra old. So what they did is they left the Old Forester that they usually do at 93 proof, and they let that sit in the barrel for 24 months. And I would only imagine that that just implemented a flavor profile that is so dark and so deep and so rich in that it's just something that is absolutely magnificent. But nonetheless, really cool experimental series that they do. But let's talk about the King Ranch. Now, this right here is really fun, really cool. King Ranch is a ranch over in Texas. It's a really well-known ranch. You think about like the King Ranch Ford F-150 edition, right? Where you see the upholstery is a little bit different, the paint style is a little bit different, but what we are seeing is Old Forester is using mesquite charcoal from the King Ranch and filtering their bourbon through that was then in a heavily charred barrel. So this is coming in at 105 proof. Me personally, it's not my favorite whiskey from Old Forester. It's still a decent bottle. I do think that these are only Texas release only still, and distillery releases. If it starts to hit the shelves in other states, I might pick up another bottle here or there when I see it, just because it's a cool bottle to have. But nonetheless, these were some of the interesting releases from Old Forester. Let's talk about their allocated bottles. So the two allocated bottles that we're going to be talking about from Old Forester is their highly regarded Birthday Bourbon and the President's Choice. Now, let's start off with the President's Choice. The President's Choice is going to be single barrel bourbons that are picked by the president of Old Forester. Now, these are going to be highly sought after, high aged, high proof, when he tastes these things and, decides that this is going to be the single barrel release for this year. Now, this year, we're seeing a single barrel rye. These are, I believe, to be Kentucky only releases. And yeah, they're really cool single barrel offerings that Old Forester does because they're highly sought after. They're a cool label. I really like that design of the President's Choice. Really fun things that Old Forester does, and what Old Forester loves are birthdays. And what exactly is this right here? This is the Old Forester Birthday Bourbon, the highest allocated bottle, I personally think, from Old Forester, because they vary in age, they vary in proof, they come out once a year, and this is to commemorate and celebrate birthdays. And this is supposed to and will be in remembrance of George Garvin Brown. His birthday is September 2nd, and I don't know if these come out September 2nd, but they're in commemoration of his birthday, and they have come out with these since, I believe, 2002. So every year it's a little bit different. This one right here was 12 years old, proofed at 100 proof. Really, really fun things Old Forester does, from their 86 proofer all the way to the Birthday Bourbon, their highest allocated release that they offer. Let me know your thoughts down below on Old Forester. Make sure you guys drop that like, leave that comment, like I said, smash that subscribe button. We're on the road to 15,000 subscribers, but until next time, it's been Nathan with the Everyday Drinker. Cheers.